Samantha was sure that when she adopted the retired police dog Raven, she would finally feel safe walking the 10 streets of Detroit at night. But nothing turned out to be further from the truth, as when she wanted to make a withdrawal from the ATM, somebody threateningly blocked her path. And then Raven did something that caught Samantha completely off guard. It all happened in a flash. Samantha stared at her dog in disbelief. The man blocking her way at the ATM clearly also didn't expect this to happen, but somehow it seemed as if he knew who Raven was. It even seemed as if he knew who Samantha was. Had he been stalking them for a while? And if so, what were his intentions? Samantha just couldn't believe her eyes. This was very out of character for her ex-police dog, and she couldn't wrap her head around why her dog would do something like that to a stranger. But why did Samantha adopt an ex-police dog? Who was the man blocking her at the ATM, and what did Raven end up doing there? But before we start our story, smash the like button, make sure to subscribe, and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any new stories. In Detroit, it feels like danger is always lurking around every corner, and Samantha feels like she has had her fair share of encounters there that she would love to forget. As a young, single woman, she was probably the top target for most of the people preying for victims on those streets. Samantha had wanted to leave the city ever since she was forced to move to one of the worst neighborhoods around due to money issues. But those money issues were also precisely the reason why she had so far been unable to leave her situation. After her boyfriend broke up with her and kicked her out of the house, she first ended up on the street. He had provided for her when they were together, and Samantha foolishly assumed that that would be the case for the foreseeable future. An error of judgment she now wholeheartedly regretted. In the time since, Samantha had been robbed twice, followed, catcalled, and even nearly kidnapped, only escaping thanks to her pepper spray. Realizing she needed more protection than a simple spray, Samantha began searching for a solution. One day she visited a local animal shelter, hoping for companionship too, as loneliness had weighed on her since her breakup. Initially planning to adopt a cat, Samantha's attention was drawn to a police officer entering with an older German shepherd. She overheard that the dog, a retired police canine, needed a new home since no one at the station wanted to care for him. It felt like fate. An experienced police dog could solve both her problems, safety and loneliness. Samantha immediately introduced herself and explained her situation, begging to adopt the dog. The officer, uninterested in her story, was simply relieved to hand the animal over. Despite finding his attitude odd, Samantha was thrilled to complete the paperwork and walk out with her new companion less than half an hour later. The dog's name was Raven. From the moment Samantha stepped onto the street with him, she felt a change. People stared but kept their distance. Even when someone dared whistle, they quickly apologized when she paused. Samantha felt invincible, empowered by Raven's presence, like she had gained a superpower. Yet she knew little about the dog beyond his police background. At home, Raven didn't seem impressed by his new surroundings. He kept his tail low, sniffing every inch of the house methodically, like he was still working an assignment. That night, Raven was restless. Though Samantha kept her bedroom door closed, she heard him pacing nonstop through the tiny home. By morning, the contrast was stark. Raven was passed out on the couch, completely unresponsive even to Samantha's attempts to wake him. When she pushed too much, he even bared his teeth at her. Samantha began to understand. Maybe no one at the station wanted him because he was conditioned to work nights and sleep during the day. A hard habit to break, especially in an older dog. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she had to try adjusting his schedule. If Raven only wanted to be active at night, he wouldn't be much help during the day, when Samantha needed him most. That morning, she stayed home, waiting for Raven to wake fully before venturing out. The idea of walking alone terrified her after everything she'd been through. It turned out to be the right decision because she would absolutely need Raven that day. By afternoon, Raven was awake and full of energy, and Samantha seized the moment. She needed to withdraw cash from a nearby ATM, one of the riskiest places in her neighborhood. She had been robbed there before and knew others had too. No cameras monitored the spot, and despite many police reports, nothing had been done. Yet there was little choice. This was the only accessible ATM for her unemployment benefits unless she went all the way into the city, where she'd face similar dangers. Determined but cautious, Samantha headed out with Raven by her side, hoping he would help her feel a little safer. When she and Raven walked up to the ATM, there was nobody in line, but a few people hung around, probably waiting for somebody to make a withdrawal worth stealing. But that was not going to happen to Samantha today. She had given herself a better chance at being left alone by coming during daylight when many people were around. Even so, Raven was clearly on high alert as they approached. Nobody dared come close, and the withdrawal went over without problems, making Samantha extremely happy and perhaps a bit overconfident. She thought she could now visit safely any time, at least with Raven by her side. Walking away, Samantha could feel eyes burning into her back. Raven kept glancing behind, probably meeting those gazes. Somebody clearly had their sights set on her, but she pulled Raven along and confidently continued her day. She did everything she was once too scared to do: reading in the park, eating alone at a cafe, even taking the subway home. As the sun set, it was time to head home. Samantha still didn't fully feel safe at night, even with Raven. She quickly walked home, but froze when 3 hooded men approached. Pulling Raven close, she stood still. When they came too close, Raven growled and bared his teeth. The men quickly crossed the street, leaving Samantha sighing in relief. At home, she showered Raven with treats and affection, grateful he was there. She barely remembered his strange behavior from the night before. Later, as night fell, police sirens echoed nearby, a sound Samantha was used to, but one that made Raven stay alert. It saddened her to think Raven might still expect a police car to come for him. She played music to soothe him, trying to make him feel at home. Even with the music, Raven stayed restless. Samantha decided to slowly adapt her schedule to help him adjust, starting with being more active at night. The following week, she planned another withdrawal, this time in the evening. Though she still didn't leave after 10 p.m., she had become comfortable going out around 9 when it was already dark but still early. That evening, she grabbed Raven's leash and headed out. The area was a bit rougher at night, with occasional catcalling, but Raven stayed close, sometimes glancing up at her to check in. His nerves mirrored hers, and he stayed on alert, reacting to every sudden noise. When they reached the ATM, 2 people were already there, one withdrawing money, another waiting. Samantha didn't want to stand around exposed, so she decided to circle the block. When she returned, those 2 were gone, but now a man stood near the ATM, hood over his head, not directly beside the machine, but close enough to make her hesitate. Eventually, she approached. Raven stayed alert, sniffing intensely toward the man, but staying glued to Samantha's side. She felt reassured by Raven's behavior, not realizing there was more to it. As Samantha withdrew her money, Raven never took his eyes off the man. The man leaned against the wall, still and silent. Samantha hadn't seen his face yet, and while he seemed unfazed, she couldn't be sure. The machine glitched, forcing her to restart. Annoyed but cautious, she shielded her PIN while entering it again. She reasoned that if the man didn't know her code, he probably wouldn't try to steal her card, a naive thought she would later reconsider. After withdrawing her cash, she quickly tucked it into her purse, mindful not to reveal how much she had. As she turned to leave, she noticed Raven still frozen in place, eyes locked on the man. He didn't growl or bark, just stared, unmoving. That's when the man suddenly began to move. He stopped leaning against the wall and started walking towards Samantha at a slow pace. Step by step, the man approached, moving carefully as if to avoid Raven. Samantha pulled Raven's leash, trying to walk away, but he wouldn't budge. Her heart pounded as the man drew closer. She didn't want to leave Raven behind, but feared for her safety, unsure why Raven was suddenly unresponsive. She called his name, but Raven ignored her, standing completely still. Tears welled in Samantha's eyes as she tried again. Finally, Raven moved to stand beside her, growling lowly at the approaching man. Samantha tugged hard on the leash, and Raven finally obeyed, but the man suddenly rushed toward them. Samantha screamed in shock, trying to run, but the man blocked her path. "Please," she cried, clutching her purse and Raven's leash tightly. She hoped Raven would react, but he remained strangely passive. The man didn't attack, just stood there, preventing her from leaving. Samantha wondered if he was waiting for someone else to emerge. She knew she had to get away fast. She turned to flee in the other direction, but the man quickly mirrored her movements, cutting her off again. "Please, what do you want?" she pleaded. The man stepped even closer, so near she could feel his breath. He seemed unstable, possibly under the influence of something. Samantha carefully took a step back. When the man didn't follow, she prepared to run, but then Raven moved toward him. Samantha gripped the leash tightly, trying to hold Raven back, but he started whining and pulling to get closer. Then, without warning, Raven broke free, the leash slipping from Samantha's grasp. "Raven, no!" she cried, fearing an attack. But instead of attacking, Raven shocked her. He ran straight into the man's arms. The man laughed and caught Raven easily. Raven licked his face excitedly, knocking the man's hood down to reveal a very ordinary older man. "That's my boy," the man said, confused. Samantha said, Excuse me?" "That's my dog." The man gently set Raven down and gave him a command to lie down. Instantly, Raven obeyed, something he had never done with Samantha before. "My name's Greg," the man explained. "I'm an ex-policy officer. Raven was my partner, but when I retired early, he had to stay behind to finish his service." Samantha stood stunned. It explained Raven's strange behavior and why he had acted so differently toward Greg. Greg had spotted them on one of their earlier outings and thought he recognized Raven, but didn't want to scare Samantha by approaching. Unfortunately, standing silently nearby had made him seem even more suspicious. Greg admitted he only wanted one final hug with his old partner and maybe the chance to walk him sometimes. He wasn't in a position to care for Raven full-time, and he could see Samantha loved him deeply. Samantha promised to think about it. Later, they set up a coffee date. In the daylight, Samantha saw that Greg truly had good intentions and loved Raven. They agreed Greg could walk Raven 2 to 3 times a week, and they stayed in close contact. A new friendship built on a loyal companion.